The sun had just crept up over the top of the hill. The 4 pups were sound asleep in their beds, and I was still snoozing in the driveway. Petunia Raspberry Skunk, however, was up and about, busy working on her new floor. She was painting it her most favorite color, red raspberry. It was a big job, so Petunia started early. She took out her roller and the paint tray. She filled the paint tray with luscious red raspberry and began to work. By this time, the pups were getting up. Dilly had had bad dreams and was a bit grumpy. Smudge had trouble doing up the last button on his jacket, and that put him in a bad mood. And Tanker hurried down to be the first at the breakfast table. As he slid down the pole, he lost his grip and landed with a thud. Needless to say, there were 3 grumpy faces around the breakfast table. Farrah, on the other hand, was in a great mood. I was delighted to see her because all that grumpiness could get an old truck down. After breakfast, Farrah asked if the pups wanted to decorate the driveway with sidewalk chalk. Dilly shook her head. She was still staring at her cereal bowl and not eating. Smudge thought the idea was boring and he didn't want to. Tanker said he felt just like going right back to bed. Farrah looked at them and shrugged. She was very independent, and in the shake of a tail, she was outside drawing happy faces all over the driveway. After a while, Farrah came back in. Dilly was still staring at her soggy cereal. Farrah invited her to put some music on and dance some wild and crazy dances. Dilly just shook her head. No, thanks. Smudge was sitting in the window, looking out. He said he didn't have dancing feelings inside, so he didn't want to. Tanker told her that if he danced, he'd probably fall over, so no thanks for him, too. Farrah felt a little bad that nobody wanted to play. But she put on the bounciest music she could find and made up a dance. She was too busy whirling and jumping to notice 6 feet starting to tap to the music. But nobody joined in. When she turned the music off, she looked at her friends. They all sat in the very same place. Farrah sighed. The pup could really get discouraged with the lack of fun people in the fire station. Next, she rolled out some finger painting paper, and she didn't ask if anyone wanted to paint with her. Tanker came over and watched, but he didn't join in. And as Farrah thought about how the pups didn't want to play with her, she sighed. She ended with a few small circles on the page, and then washed her hands. She came out to see me. On the driveway, Farrah told me how discouraged she was. Nobody was happy about anything, and it was making her sad. I gave her a little kiss and told her that some days are like that. And we didn't have long to talk about it, though, because on my radio, there was a call from Petunia Raspberry Skunk. When I flashed my red light, all the pups, even the sleepy, grumpy, grouchy ones, leapt into action. At Petunia's house, the door was wide open. Dilly hurried up the steps and peeked inside. Petunia shouted to her not to step on the wet paint. Dilly looked down. The floor was the most beautiful color of red raspberry. Dilly leaned around the edge of the door and saw Petunia with her paint roller, paint tray, and nothing else. She had painted herself right into the tiniest corner and couldn't come out. She didn't want to ruin her glorious paint job. When Smudge came to the door, he wondered what the trouble was. Dilly explained. Smudge didn't exactly understand, and he stooped down to test the paint. When he touched it ever so slightly, he discovered it was dry. Then he touched it a little more firmly, and it was definitely dry. Couldn't get any drier than that. Petunia was puzzled, but she'd started early in the morning. It was now afternoon. She'd been crouched in her tiny corner for a long time. She tested the paint and discovered Smudge was right. Petunia burst out laughing. Tanker started to giggle, and so did Billy. Smudge did too. And when he told me, I have to admit I laughed too. It was funny. But Farrah didn't laugh. The Pups helped Petunia paint the last tiny bit of her floor before we left. They giggled the whole time, except for Farrah. On the way home, the Pups discussed how it was good to laugh. And when we drove up the driveway, all of Farrah's crazy, funny faces made the Pups smile too. Farrah didn't smile, though. At the fire station, all the Pups wanted to do was finger paint and dance some crazy wild dances. They raced inside. Farrah sat on my bumper. She didn't feel like doing any of it. And when I asked her why, she told me that all of a sudden she didn't feel happy anymore. I asked what she was sad about, but she couldn't think of anything. I wondered if maybe the Pups being so grumpy and not interested in doing things had made her sad. She had wanted to laugh and play and be silly when everybody else was grouchy. Farrah sighed. She guessed I was right. Then I pointed out that she had caught their bad mood, but she didn't have to keep it if she didn't want it. And Farrah looked at me. I told her she could just go right ahead and shake it off. Farrah giggled. She stood up and started kicking the air and shaking herself, and pretty soon she was laughing again. She hugged me and thanked me for making her happy again. She raced off to show the other Pups the crazy new dance she'd made up. Now, if you feel grumpy, try to think of why you feel that way. If you don't have a reason, stand up and shake it out of you. After all, happy is a whole lot more fun, don't you think?
Here's some things that are fun to do. Fun for the friends who play with you. Fun for a bunch, or just for two. Fun for me, and fun for you. Like singing a song. It's fun to have a friend to sing with, too. You can make up your own song and sing it out loud. Two voices can make beautiful music together. Just don't start singing too early in the morning, or you might wake someone up.